Good morning, everyone. This is Mike Dane with MLS Technology. Today we're going to be going through the Advanced Matrix and Realist class. Actually, right there. I did want to run through just a couple basic elements of the webinar system before we actually get started with the course content. So everyone is going to be starting on mute by default. Just so you guys are aware, you do have the option to get unmuted. I'll cover that in just a moment. If you do have questions, though, we'd prefer for you guys to put it down into the Q&A section down at the bottom. There should be a button down there for you already. If you guys don't see that, though, it may be that you need to tap the screen in order for it to appear, but again, we'll get to that in a second as well. Chat is going to be where you guys can post any comments or stories you'd like to share, whatever the case may be. Just make sure that any questions that you have go into Q&A and any commentary that you have goes into the chat section. Also, if you guys have any audio or video issues during this course, please let me know immediately. We want to make sure that if you guys are having some kind of problem technically, that we're able to get that rectified. There's always a chance that you might not be the only one that's having an issue as well, so it'd be good to let us know if you are. Also, the CE credit for the class should be sent in pretty much right after I'm done here, but if you guys don't see that applied before the end of the month, get in contact with us, and there should be an option on our numbers when you guys call into our main line for the education director, which is Jessica Birch. Jessica Birch should be able to check that information for you. All right. As far as participating goes, we do have a couple different buttons down at the bottom of the screen. So again, chat is going to be where you guys can post any commentary. Make sure that Zoom doesn't have that locked still, and it does. I need to find out why that's defaulting to not letting you guys talk in chat, which seems to defeat the purpose of it. But it should be unlocked now. But again, chat is going to be where you guys can post any commentary you'd like to share, Q&A for any questions that you may have. And as mentioned before, we do want to give you guys the option to unmute yourself if need be. We're going to use this raise hand kind of as a polling mechanism a little bit later, but if you guys do end up having a question, just hit that raise hand button and I can unmute you so that you can ask your question with your voice instead. All right. If you guys are joining us on a mobile device, the layout might be just a little bit different. There's going to be a raise hand button over to the left, chat and Q&A over to the right. All of these buttons will appear after you tap the screen. Once you tap the screen, then you should be able to see them. All right. But I've got our phone number up on the screen now. If you guys do end up having any problems or questions, even outside of this class itself, get in contact with us over at the service desk. We'd be more than happy to help you. All right, get this out of the way. Start our poll. Now, the poll is a required element of the CE credit, so make sure that you guys actually are responding to this. If you do not respond to this, you will not receive credit. It's also very short and easy, so. This one's still zoomed in? Yeah. Perfect. All right. Got 6 out of 8 people. Just need a couple more people. Again, the poll is actually a required thing, so we do have to have that completed. And missing one more person. And actually, just to clarify, in case that happens to be you, if you're having issues with actually getting the poll to show up, just let us know. Oh, or disconnect. that also works. Hopefully they're just having some technical issues. All right, well, let's share what we got anyway. So looks like you're new to real estate. It looks like there's about half of you guys that are. Um, all of you guys pretty much have attended the basic matrix class except one person. That's all right. We do cover some of the basics just to give you some context for what we're going to discuss today, but yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and get started then. Now, the purpose of today's class, just because we're going through a couple of very basic sections here, we're not really going to be trying to spend a lot of time doing the kind of generic general search stuff. We want to make sure that you guys are actually aware of some of the more advanced features within the matrix and realist systems. Now, obviously, as technology is kind of speeding ahead all the time, realtors are either going to be in front of the curve or getting left behind. Now, the public expects a level of technical expertise from realtors nowadays that's far greater than we've ever seen. So as new trends are starting to surface in the real estate technology world, like coming soon was added back in 2020, virtual staging, it's been added in recent years, just to name a couple. The last thing that you guys need to be worried about is your proficiency regarding these two basic tools. And obviously, these are the main ones that you guys are going to be using to run your business. So it'd be important to know some of those extra features. Now, the Matrix MLS system and the Realist tax system, although obviously not new to any of you guys who are seasoned agents, it does contain advanced tools that if you guys are not using it, could probably be easily forgotten. So bogging down any of the daily routines that you guys might have, making some of those simple tasks more frustrating, cumbersome. So this class is designed to teach you guys proficient ways to use some of these advanced tools and get the most out of this system. So we're going to start us off on Matrix. I'm putting this into full screen view just to get rid of this title bar at the top, just in case you guys aren't aware, it's F11 on your keyboard. This out of the way. All right. So starting us off, I wanted to introduce us to a couple of the features that we have here on our homepage. First and foremost, I wanted to introduce you guys to these two widgets called Market Watch and Hot Sheets. Now, these may be in different locations, and just to kind of give a little bit of a recap from our basic matrix class, any of these widgets that we have on the homepage, except for this news and alerts up at the top left, can be collapsed using that little arrow, or if you hit the X to get rid of something, it'll actually dump it under the additional widget, which it could be collapsed as well. But if you guys would like to return anything that you guys have maybe moved off the screen just because it wasn't what you needed at the time, you can just click and drag and it'll plop it back there on your home page. So if you guys are using all of your features and functions, it might get a little bit cluttered and cumbersome, but it would be wise, again, just to experiment with what exactly this can do for you, what parts and pieces of this you would like to keep, and then anything that you're not interested in or isn't going to serve your needs on a daily basis, you can just kind of either collapse or hit the X and just get rid of them into the additional widgets section. Now, the two that I'm going to be discussing right now are going to be the Market Watch section and Hot Sheets. Market Watch is going to give us a numeric number or numeric value for each of the different statuses that we've got. So whether it's a new listing, coming soon, back on market, price increase and decrease. You notice down here at the very bottom, though, we actually have it set up with the residential as our property type. And we have all 4 property types plus one that's called cross property that allows you guys to just see all of the listings, no matter what their property type is. And then over here to the right, we've got the time frame that we're going to set for where or what time frame we're going to be looking for the numbers that are popping up here. So for instance, if I do today, it's just going to be doing from midnight today. If I do 24-hour, it's going to go back to 10:10 yesterday. But if you guys do end up setting a number here, you'll see these numbers change so that you can just click on, for instance, coming soon, and then just see all the listings that have recently been added to the system that are currently in a coming soon status. Now, as soon as those go active, that's when it's going to be showing up here as a new listing. If something goes into withdrawn or pending and then comes back on the market as a active listing again, we can see back on market here, price decreases, price increases. How many properties have gone pending? Seems to be a ratio issue here, right? We've also seen closed, so on and so forth. Now, each of these is kind of getting into just what exactly is the most recent status change to that particular listing. So if you guys are trying to find out, what exactly is happening in a certain area, this isn't necessarily going to help until we click on this customize option. Because right now, what we're actually looking at here is literally all of the listings that have been added, no matter where they are in our entire MLS. So if I'm going to coming soon, I'm seeing things from Broken Arrow, Bixby, Coweta, Owasso. Like there's a bunch of different listings showing up here. If I were to switch this and customize, we can maybe give it just houses is what I'm interested in. And let's actually add on either a map search, a school district search, or a city search. Let's just narrow this focus down into Tulsa, Broken Arrow, and let's do Jinx as well. So once I save that, all of my numbers are going to change now. So I'm only going to be seeing the numbers for those particular cities that I added. Again, that was all under the customize option. It's worth noting as well that the customizations that you do are going to be done on a single property type. So if I go over here now to the commercial side, notice the customize option is still there, but I'm actually seeing listings from the commercial side of things that are all over the place. In fact, actually, let me add a column here real quick. We can actually see where these are. Oh yeah. So when you guys are setting this up, if you do end up wanting to set up those customizations to kind of localize it to wherever you are, you may want to do it for each of the property types that you're interested in, or just set up your cross-property search to make sure that it has the ones that you're looking for. So let's say we'll do Tulsa, Union, Jinx, and Broken Arrow. There we go. Save that. And now I've got a cross-property search that's going to include all of the different property types, residential, commercial, vacant land, and the residential lease option, and dump all of those into one location for us. So now we can see a bunch of coming soons that are put in there. We can see a bunch of the price decreases, and it's going to be all sorts of different property types. We've got a house that's for lease, a house that's for sale. We've got a condo even. Oh, one that I guess changed to pending literally when we clicked it, which is pretty interesting. Anyway, all right, so that's going to be our market watch section. Now, what's nice about the market watch, in my opinion, is that what's going to end up happening here is that each of these is actually going to just dive directly into just that category and that category alone. But if you do want a little bit more of a comprehensive list, especially if we're trying to really gauge the market in that area, that's when we start getting into the hot sheets instead. Now, when we set this up with the market watch, we had to do a customize in order to be able to set up the area that we're interested in. Hot sheets is going to work pretty much the exact same way. There's going to be a bunch of default options. You should see 5 there by default: residential, commercial, land, lease, and cross property, just like we saw with the market watch. But we do have the option under customize to actually add something completely new. So we already added one for Eufaula. I click on add. I can choose what my property type is going to be. Let's say we wanted to do a cross property and we wanted to set it up for Durant. So save, and then I select Durant, edit criteria, and we can start setting up a search. But notice there's way more options on this one. Over on the left-hand side, we can see what our change type is going to be, how many days back we're willing to go, what property types we want to use, what property subtypes we want to use. So we can actually get into a lot more of just effectively a pre-made search. You can very literally just use this as a saved search if you would like to. I don't necessarily recommend it, but it is possible. The functionality is there. So I'm going to actually set mine up so that I see only the things that are going to be currently on the market. And I only want to see the stuff that is residential and residential lease. Only looking for houses and Durant, and we're all set. I can even put in price ranges and put in what counties we're wanting to look for. So if you guys actually wanted to leave this really vague and just do Bryan County instead, we can expand that out. Once we save that, actually, let me rename that real quick so we can say Durant area instead. Perfect. Done. Now, when we actually have gotten that set up, I'm going to set my time frame again, just like we did last time. We'll do 3 days just so we have matching numbers. Hit Durant area. And this is going to show me all of the properties that, again, are only going to be ones that are currently active. So I'm not going to see the pending. I'm not going to see the closed, released, expired, because that's the statuses that I chose, was just those are that are new, price increases, price decreases, back on market and coming soon. So we can see all of these showing the status change over here, what their status type is, or what their status currently is. And then over here to the far right, if there has been any price decreases or increases, there's actually a column to kind of help you visualize that, just to make sure you understand what's happening. Also, just as a side note, just because this happens to be an area that this is happening a lot in, if you guys do end up putting your own listings in, or if you guys have an admin that's putting in listings, make sure that you add the property's street type. This one right here, 144 Ross, is missing street, drive, avenue, who knows, Edgewood, Mockingbird, all of those are just missing their details. I'm not going to click on these to open them just in case somebody in the class is responsible for those, but just make sure if you guys don't have the system require you to put in that street type, you may have to manually enter that without it reminding you to do so. But an important note about that is that sometimes these things will actually not end up getting mapped properly. So thankfully, this one lucked out. It got onto the right one, but we've had people with listings that just end up out in the middle of nowhere. And it's because oftentimes they might actually have put in a bad address, or simply they just didn't put in a complete address. We do notice that if you don't put in a complete address, you're not going to end up with something quite as egregious as, listings in Indiana, which is supposed to be a Broken Arrow. We've got listings here in Callister. Oh, hey, actually, this is a perfect example. What is it missing? Street type. And here it is, mapped all the way out in Wichita. But all that to say, make sure that you guys are double checking your work. We even have a few listings out here in China. So if anybody's interested in some land in China, oh, hey, look, another one that's missing the street type. And another one. Interesting. Anyway, just keep that in mind. Always try to make sure that you guys have complete data. We do have a class on ad edit if you guys are interested in that one. But anyway, we've got our hot sheet set up. Now, I did want to point out, you guys do have the option when you go to this customize to actually edit the default options as well. So like if you guys like that it says residential, but you just want to make sure that it's actually set up for your specific area, you can do so. But I'm really fond of the hot sheets. There's other systems that'll do similar things, but I think the nuance that you guys have access to with the search functionality and the market watch and the hot sheets really allows you guys to make it something that's perfectly just for you. All right, next let's talk about our search functionality. So again, you can use this market watch and hot sheets to kind of do a haphazard search, but we do have a search function. As you guys can see, I've got a whole bunch of different saved searches. One of the saved searches that I had is that out of state option. So what this actually was is that I combined a specific search down here at the bottom. I've got the state added. So I wanted to search for only properties that are meant to be in Oklahoma. And then I went to my map. I drew on my map to include only the stuff that's outside of Oklahoma by drawing a shape and then using the exclude this shape option. Now, of course, this is just going to be kind of inexact. Like we've even got a listing here that's Hackett, Oklahoma. Oh, and again, another one missing the. Make sure that your data is complete. I promise you, it's going to save you guys a ton of headaches. But you guys can see all of that information showing up on here. It'll just allow you guys to effectively create anything and everything that you would want on a search. But in order to get the most out of those searches, I wanted to mention a couple basic things. So first and foremost, there is a search tab up here, there's a search section up here at the top that's going to allow you guys to search for addresses. So if you do happen to know what the listing's address is and you're searching for it, you guys can add that information in right here. And you can also add up to 10 properties in that space. So just keep on clicking more until you've got all of those available to you. This would be great for showing tours if you guys needed to put together a showing tour. You can also just put in simply the MLS numbers, and just like we saw with the school district, the city, the county, zip code, you guys can actually just add commas between those, and you guys can search for all of those all at once. So again, especially handy if you guys are doing showing tours. Now, another option is going to be that when you guys are getting into here, if there's a certain kind of search that you're doing frequently, like the example that I'm going to use today is actually the appraisers. Appraisers very often will customize this and just leave it permanently. So as an example, let's say that I'm working out in Ada. So I'm going to be doing Pontotoc County. And I want to make sure that I'm only seeing stuff from that county so that I don't end up muddying my results with, stuff from elsewhere by accident. And I'm going to put in active, pending, and closed. This way I have all of the basic things that I would need for a CMA. I can even include the expired listings as well, which is another really great way to try and gauge your price. If you end up having the stuff that's active, that's great. That's the stuff that's currently available. Pending, that's great because that means that whatever that list price was originally at least interested somebody, even though that's not necessarily going to be the closed price. Closed price is obviously the data that we're actually looking for on a CMA. But then the expired listings are really handy if you guys have somebody that is maybe overestimating the value of their property. So for instance, if you have somebody that maybe thinks that the value of their property is way higher and they try and get you to set the price at something ridiculous, well, you can pull up any of those expired listings and show them that, all right, we do have other people in your area that have found that pricing did not work for them. And subsequently, the listing actually ended up expiring without ever getting sold. So you guys could actually include all of those together, put on our Pontotoc County. And if this was kind of my starting point for so many of my searches, rather than having to type that back in, check those checkboxes again, you can actually just come up to the top right corner here where we've got this little gear icon. Zoom this in a little bit. Got this gear icon, and there's going to be an option, set currently selected search criteria as my starting default, which means that the next time I actually get into Matrix and I go to my search, to my quick residential search, it'll automatically start me off with my statuses already selected and my county already filled in. So it makes it way easier to kind of set it up for what you guys are typically going to be doing. Now I'm going to set mine back to the search system defaults. This way we should only see the active being checked. But there's a huge variety of different ways for you guys to set that up. If you guys do end up liking having a search default, it might be worth exploring that. But I did want to mention, just like with the hot sheets and the market watch, any of the customizations that you make to one are not going to filter over to the other search types. So if you guys are searching for a different property type under the quick commercial, for instance, even if I go through here and set this all up and say that I want to do Pontotoc County, set that up as my search starting defaults, it's only going to save that for the quick commercial search. If I go back to my residential search, it does not make any changes. All right, let's actually throw together a search and let's take a look at Let's do a specific subdivision. And actually, this is going to be my segue into talking about the subdivisions for a moment here. You guys might notice I've got an asterisk at the beginning and the end of all of the searches that I do through the subdivision search. Now, the reason for that is that when we actually are running a search for subdivisions, it's doing a character for character search, which means that if I end up typing in simply Minchell Park, I will have, look at that, all of 0 matches. I should for sure be seeing at least something. If I add an asterisk at the beginning, does nothing for me because Minchell Park actually has a whole bunch of resubs and addendums, so on and so forth. So I won't actually see results until I put an asterisk at the end. Now I've got 12 matches. Now the logic there is that those asterisks are what are called a wildcard search. This means that any of the data that's going to come either before because of the asterisk at the beginning or after because of the asterisk at the end will just automatically be included no matter what. So if this was the Minchula Park Estates, it's not going to matter because it's got the asterisk at the beginning that's going to say if it's got if it's estates of, or whatever it is, it won't matter. And then the same thing again at the end, because I don't know about you guys, but some of these subdivision names are just ridiculous. Let's see what this one's. Oh, Minchell Park 3. Well, that's pretty generic. 3, 3, 3, 4. Oh, here we go. Minchell Park 4, resub L60 dash. Like, why is it this long? This is unnecessary. But because of this particular example, that's why I usually recommend people to just use the asterisks at the beginning and end of every subdivision search. But I did want to show you guys, since I do have some results now, back to our single line display. So here we have a whole bunch of listings that have popped up for us based on our search. This layout that we see right here is something that we can actually customize further. Now, we do discuss this briefly in our basic matrix class, but I actually wanted to show you guys some more functionality to this. Now, when we're going through and actually making adjustments to this is going to just change it for this particular session. So if you guys want to experiment with this and you don't really want to keep any of the changes, not to worry. There's a reset up here at the top, and we can also just wait until the next day. When the next day comes, it just automatically resets your views back to the default that you have. But let's talk about how to actually customize this. If I do want to add something on here, I just need to click on the gray space up here at the top. Under normal circumstances, you can just click and drag to kind of readjust things, or click on the title bar up at the top here to choose how you guys want to actually have this sorted. But if you click on the gray space, just a regular click, it's actually going to pull up a little menu here that allows you guys to either remove the column that you're looking at. So for instance, if my search was specifically for a house, when I get to my results page, this subtype is going to be completely moot because all of them are going to be houses. So if I didn't need that data to appear, I could just hit this remove column option and just get rid of it. Now, obviously our status, our school district, and even our address are all going to be valuable information. So what I'm going to do instead is let's actually add in some new data. I'm going to click on the gray space again, insert column. Let's actually add in the acres. Hit apply, and now I've got my acreage showing for each and every one of these listings. And if I wanted to actually sort by this, I can click on acres, and that'll become my primary sort. And we do discuss this again in our basic matrix class, but just it kind of gives you a quick recap. Anytime you guys are actually clicking on one of these headers, it sets it as the primary. Whatever was your primary last is now going to be considered the secondary sort. I can hold my cursor over this in a way that it's going to show it to you guys. No? Don't want to make it obvious for me, do you? Secondary, well, anyway, hopefully you guys could see it. And then we also have a tertiary sort over here on the far left. Now, as we start clicking on new things to sort, you notice that it kind of is effectively following us as we go through. Now, what that means is that you guys do end up wanting to have something sorted, but don't really necessarily care about whether or not that's the primary sort. What you guys can do is just click on something once. It'll just make that your primary sort, and that's it. If you guys want it to sort by something else, you might need to click on that item first and then go back to acres and click on that. So this way we can see, all right, both of the 22s are going to be sorted by price after they see the stuff that's all 0.22. So there is some things on here that sorting by it is not really going to affect the secondary or tertiary sort. Other things that you guys search by, like if I did bedroom count and then did full bath count, you can pretty easily see like, all right, here's the 4s with 3, 4s with 2, 3 with 2. Oh, that's the rest of them. That's all of these. And then a 5 with 3 on a much smaller piece of land, lots more space than all the other ones. Interesting. Anyway, now all this data could be pretty helpful to us, but if we want to actually use this again in the future, I can go up to the top here and either set this as my default, which means that anytime I'm doing a residential search, it's going to automatically remove any of the property subtypes. It's going to automatically add the acres, and then all of these search sort methods are going to be baked into this as well. That's going to be our default option up here at the top. I can always restore things back to the search system or the system search default, and this will put everything back to the way that it was. Now, we do also have an option to save things. So if I wanted to maybe save some adjustments that I'd made to this, like if I added acres in there and I was really happy with the way that that looked, instead of this just being my default, because this isn't always going to be information my client might need, I can go up to the top and do manage display and then just save it as something new. So we just have to give it a name and then do save as a copy. Now, prime example of those, I've already got an acres check, which is going to go through, and it looks like the only thing that's actually added is this acres column over here to the side. I've also got a simple with acres. Here's I've got some duplicates there, and then I've got a custom house search. So if you guys do find that you're wanting to kind of add in some really unique elements of this, that's going to be the manage display option. So here's one that I have the subdivision and then the HOA amenities. So if I had somebody that was searching specifically for like, oh, well, I want to have a pool nearby or make sure that there's a park in the area, that kind of stuff, all of that can be marked under the amenities. Also, just as a side note, it does seem kind of interesting that these are all the same subdivision and yet the amenities are all over the place. Anyway, let's jump back to our criteria. House, yeah, all right. I think, but actually, you know what? We can just run with this. This gives us data anyway, so we can work with that. All right, now let's talk about how to actually get this data out to our clients. Now, let's combine a couple of the things that we've learned so far. So when I got into the search, I ended up customizing it. In this case, I've got the subdivision, the amenities, and the acres added. If I wanted to actually export this particular set of data, so not just the default that doesn't include the subdivision or the amenities, but all of the information that I see on this screen, I have to have it saved as a specific display. Once I've got it saved as a specific display, then I can actually go down here to my email and print options. I'm going to use the print option, and we can see here's my sub and HOA search function. So this way, if I do actually want to, get that specific view to my client, I can actually put all that information into a PDF, send it on its way, and it'll include all of that data for them. So we can see this. I've seen people use this for BPOs. I've seen them use it for CMAs. I've seen them use it for just investors that are trying to find more information out about properties than just the kind of generic stuff. So there's a variety of different uses for that. Again, all of that's going to be dependent on your display options. So if you guys save a cool display that you like, you guys can email that out to a client. Additionally, if you guys want to use that as a custom export, so for instance, I know there's a few, actually a lot of agents in town that are doing like pretty advanced market analytics. The information is in our MLS and you guys want to use it, that's perfectly fine. Hit this export button and you can dump all of the information into an Excel spreadsheet so that you can parse it out in whatever manner that you would like. I'm really fond of this. I actually use this pretty regularly because there are things that, I mean, no offense to Matrix, but there are things that uh, you can do in Excel that you just simply can't do in Matrix. So for instance, here's all our data. We saw earlier that we were actually adding in a column again for the subdivision, the HOA amenities acres. All of that's appearing on here. If I wanted to, I can just come in, add my filter on there, and now I can do all sorts of different sorting. If I wanted to actually exclude certain options, so like let's say I wanted to exclude the ones that are from that particular subdivision, whatever the case may be. I mean, Excel is vast. If you guys like it, that's an easy way to try and get the data into a format that you guys will enjoy more as the export function. I usually use it for compliance issues, but and other use cases for it. All right, next let's talk about a search function that I don't think a lot of people are actually using, but I would very strongly recommend that you guys try exploring. And you may notice up here at the top that there is actually some text that appeared in this kind of blank space that we have up at the top. This is actually referred to as the speed bar, and there's a little pop-up window that you guys have access to here under the question mark icon. What that's going to do is allow you guys to actually go through and learn up on exactly what this function can do for you. But I'm going to save you guys some of the trouble, dump that over here to the side, and let's actually try. There we go. Let's actually try doing a little bit of a casual search. So I'm just got into Matrix, haven't really done anything in there yet, and I'm just needing to learn a little bit more about a certain area. So over here on the side, we can see our speed bar. Shorthand examples are going to boil down to giving it a property type. We can even choose a status. If we would like to, we can even narrow it down to a certain area, a price range. And then the bedrooms and bathrooms, which I'll get to in a moment, a little bit complicated. Square footage is in there. And then the ones that we use the most on the service desk are going to be the agent search, because boy, howdy, is it easy to just go, I don't even have to finish their name, and I can find whoever I need to just by putting AG, a space, their first name, or even just a portion of their first name, and then a space and a portion of their last name. But let's try this actually for property, because agent searching, you guys might not use that often, but let's say that I actually wanted to search for residential properties. So I'm going to type in res, indicating that that's the property type. A for the transact or the listing status. So A for active, P for pending, C for closed, W for withdrawn, so on and so forth. And we can add in additional things like, again, let's say the city that we want to use. Let's do, how about Ardmore? Oh, Ardmore was the one that I just saw. That's right. Tahlequah. See if I can spell that properly. So we'll do Tahlequah, and then I'm going to do a price range. So all I need to do is make sure that I've got a $sign before whatever the price is that I'm wanting. 200 to 300. And then another space. Now the bedrooms and bathrooms are going to be a little bit different. We're going to have whatever the unaccompanied number is first is going to be assumed to be the bedroom. So what that means is if I just add in a 3 and then just run this, it's going to automatically assume that I'm looking for things that are 3 bedrooms and that's it, full stop. If I add in the plus, that's when we're going to say 3 or more. And then the second unaccompanied number that I add is going to automatically assumed to be the total bedroom count or total bathroom count, excuse me, total bathroom count. So bedroom count first, bathroom count second, and then once I've gotten that information added, I can go through and just run my search. Now, if I need to make sure that I've actually got the correct information on here, we see that we've got all of our details up at the top. If I go to criteria, we've got a residential search, active, telequa, price range, bedrooms, and bathrooms. Now, we did take kind of a circuitous route to get here, so let me actually just recap that real quick. So if I get into Matrix, I've got a very specific area that I want to search by. I can just dump my cursor up at the top, res, active, Durant, give ourselves a price range, 4 or more and 3 or more. Hit enter, and I've got 2 results. Now, just to be clear, I could just as easily go in and say residential, click down here, Durant, click up here, 300 to 400, click down here, and so on and so forth. But notice I'm having to take my hand away from my keyboard, click in one spot, put my hand back on the keyboard, or leave my other hand over there. It's just going to require more motion. If I just want to do everything really quickly, I can just dump it all up in the top. Another benefit to this particular thing is that when you guys are actually on the mobile version of Matrix, that speed bar will always be present. So if you guys are not using that MLS Touch app, then you guys, this would be really easy. Oh, sorry about that. My headset just twice in a row, huh? All right. Check, check, check. Oh, that's a new issue. Anyway, if you guys sign into Matrix on your phone, you guys can just jump directly into the speed bar up at the top and type in whatever it is you were wanting to find. So it makes it really easy to just dive directly into the results or dive directly into a search by just using that speed bar up at the top. But again, I think the most common thing that all of us on the service desk are using is the agent search. One of the really cool benefits of the agent search is that when you guys are actually searching for someone, again, you don't have to type in the full name, run our search, click on their name from that agent search, and you guys can actually dive directly into their active listings. So it makes it really easy to try and actually get the information that you're needing. If you just got off the phone with somebody and they were telling you about this, I don't know, spectacular property that you've got that one client that it might be perfect for or whatever, but you're like, oh, I didn't actually write down the address, or it didn't have an address because it was land, or whatever the case may be. So really easy to try and make the adjustments on that. All right. Next, let's talk about oh, we really did go through all that. Oh, that's right. We did have one more thing to talk about. All right, I'm going to head up to My Matrix, and I'm going to go to My Listings. Get rid of this. There we go. Now, when we're looking at My Listings, this is an important section for you guys, not just because obviously you guys can see any of the listings that you have in the system. This is also going to allow you guys to see a wealth of other details. Chiefly, I wanted to introduce you guys to My Hit Counters. So when you guys are first getting in here, should have My Active Listings as a default, so it should be about halfway down. Now, what this My Hit Counters is actually going to indicate to us is this particular listing that I have has ended up on 24 different client portals. We've had 5 different clients of other agents, in this case, who have actually viewed this particular listing, which hopefully they don't get any bad ideas with this, because this is, in fact, very much a test listing. But, you know, if they've stumbled upon it, they've stumbled upon it. But we can see the client portals that it's shown up on, the client views that it's acquired. There is the option to see how many favorites it's received, but as you guys can see, obviously, again, fake listing, not going to get a lot of those. But we can see that this was actually included in 24 different emails, which is, again, pretty surprising since this is out in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, so it still ended up on 24 auto emails. We've got 2 agents that published to this. So I actually chose to send this on to the client through that auto email. This is a concierge mode. And then we also have one that said, no, I don't want to include this. Now, this is also going to show us the cumulative amount of times that the agents have also selected this listing and taken a closer look at it. This could be really helpful if you guys are trying to gauge the interest in a particular property of yours. But I also wanted to point out, if you guys are interested in actually seeing maybe more about the people that have included this particular listing in their auto emails, that's where you guys are going to get into the reverse prospecting option. Now, reverse prospecting is something that's actually a default for our system. Whenever you guys actually have created a brand new contact in the system, anybody that you guys send an auto email to as a contact will automatically get given a kind of anonymous number. In fact, actually, I think they show it over to the far right. Yeah, here's our reference numbers. So once we've set them up in the system, they will be given an anonymizing reference number. This is going to be unique to each and every one of us. So you might find that you've got some contact in your system that's got this 90817, but that's because 90817 is going to be unique to me. And then whenever we go into your system, it's going to be a completely different contact that's unique to you. But whenever we set up the auto emails, the members that actually have had their listings included on, let's say, George Foreman's auto email, will see that this particular reference number on my system could potentially be interested in his listing. So this reverse prospecting allows us to actually get you guys in communication with the people that are actually looking at your particular properties. So whenever you guys have that auto email set up, you're effectively automatically allowing other agents to know that you have a client that might be interested in their properties. Now, again, just to be clear, be very clear, no one will be able to see your contacts, who they are, their contact information, any details about them. All it's going to show is just that me as an agent has a listing, you as an agent have a client, and we can now communicate because of that interest. So if you guys are going to actually take a look at that, again, under My Listings, go up to My Active Listings, check the checkbox, and there's a Reverse Prospect button. So again, when you go to My Listings, you've got My Active Listings where you see all of yours. You've got the hit counters to see the interest. And then if you guys want to gauge the interest on the property, check the checkbox and hit Reverse Prospect. This is going to show everybody who's included this particular property as in their auto emails. And I can also see the number of other properties that have shown up there, or not, excuse me, not the number of other properties, but the total number of properties that were sent off. So in this case, Heather Mejia had sent out a auto email to this particular contact, and there was only 2 properties that actually made the cut. So what that means is that if there was some extremely hyper-specific search that they had created, this is actually going to be a really interesting client because they're going to actually have very few properties that they're actually looking at. I don't see her name appearing anywhere else on here. So this should actually be just a contact that might be looking for my specific property. And there just happens to be another property in town that matches the same criteria. So I usually would recommend to people that if you're going to be keeping track of the reverse prospecting, always, always, always reach out to the people with the smaller numbers. Just because this means that they actually had a very specific set of criteria that netted them a very small number of results. So if you want to kind of start the process of getting them a showing or whatever the case may be, you guys can actually either get in contact with them from this page, or you guys can go over here to their name and actually just start up a reverse prospecting email directly. So If you guys do have that one situation, let's say, for sharing. Oh, there we go. So if I needed to send this off, I can hit send, and that information will then show up both on my reverse prospecting email history as something that I had sent off. And then on Heather's side, she will actually see it under the received reverse prospecting history. Now, the received reverse prospecting history is actually really interesting because this is going to show us not only just what the listing was that you were referring to, who the agent was that you were referring to, but any of the received ones will also include the contact that was interested in that particular property. So it makes it a nice closed loop, makes it a lot easier to try and track down the people that are potentially interested in your property. So that's just a general overview of the my listings and the reverse prospecting. That is it for Matrix. Yeah. Let's jump over to Realist. Now, Realist is going to be a lot simpler program. There's way less to have to worry about, but I did want to actually help you guys with something that we do cover, or at least previously covered in our uh, Realist class that was 3 hours long. We've cut a bunch of material just because most of it wasn't necessary, but I wanted to cover just a couple basic things. First and foremost, when you guys get into the My Search section, there's a bunch of saved searches on there. If you guys would like to create your own saved search, instead of doing this create new search, which literally starts with nothing, what I usually recommend to people to do is use the general query and then do customize search from there. It's going to show that this is padlocked. It's going to show that I don't have any options that I can, adjust. But as soon as I hit a checkbox, all of this opened up. I can give it a name, and now I can go through and actually add in any of the other details that I was hoping to add. So just as a reminder, if you hit this save button, it's going to try and save this with the details that you have using whatever name you put up at the top. If I don't really care to actually save this for future use, but I just want to use it for now, you can just hit apply. That way down here at the very bottom, I can see all of my foreclosure information that I added after the township range section. But if I wanted to actually just do a search for just any foreclosures, I can go in here under the save search, and we have a pre-baked foreclosure query. Now, the foreclosure query option is going to include just some of the basics that you guys might need. So if I go to select from list, I can see all the pre-foreclosures, all the auction, and the stuff that's already bank owned. A little bit further down, we've got our dates that we can adjust, whether or not this is going to be a distressed sale. We can even choose what subdivision we're wanting to search within. Just grab all of those, apply. Now, when we end up running our search, this is going to show us our, I guess, 2 different results, both of which are currently yellow, indicating that it's in auction. But whenever you guys run these searches, just as a reminder, there is still going to be a export function down at the bottom. If you guys wanted to take the data that you've gotten from this and actually send that out into a Excel spreadsheet. If you wanted to do, if you wanted to do marketing to these people, you can do the print option where you guys can get all of the basic data for it, but there's also a labels option if you guys wanted to set up like a mailer campaign or something like that. But a lot of different ways to adjust that. We also wanted to talk about adjusting the grid up here at the top of this. So just like we were doing before in Matrix, we can click and drag on things to kind of adjust where they're at. You have to click on the title directly, just as a heads up. But we also have a customize table button over here on the right. We can add up to 30 different categories on here. So all we would have to do is just check the check boxes, and then it'll appear over here on the right. I found that it's a lot easier to deal with it from this perspective because then I could just quickly drag that up to the top. There we go. So let's put bedrooms and bathrooms there. All right, so when I hit apply, now I should see everything has actually been rearranged. We've got our bedrooms, bath, year built, stories, building square footage, lot acres, and all of that information can now be outputted using this quick export function. So that way it just keeps the exact same information that I have in the arrangement that I have it and with whatever sorts that I've put on it, and it just sends it directly into an Excel spreadsheet. Now, the other option would be to do this customize export, which is going to pull up pretty much the exact same page that we just saw, categories on the left, checkboxes in the middle, attributes on the right. But there is a limit to how many things you guys can actually send off per month. This is kind of, at least just for some transparency, effectively just us saying, don't print out all the data for an entire county. I think there are still going to be some outlying situations where somebody might need to actually go through and say, get a vast quantity of exports done, mailers being an example, if you guys are doing market research, that kind of stuff. If you do end up hitting this cap, just give us a call and let us know. We can always adjust that if need be. But that should be about it. I did want to actually mention there's a peculiar thing that's been happening whenever we end up having people do a search or do a custom export. If you guys do happen to be working on a smaller screen, we've noticed that sometimes it becomes increasingly, zooming in, my bad, increasingly smaller and smaller. So if you guys are working on a small screen, or if you guys happen to be working on a large screen, but then a small window, some of these buttons just disappear completely. I don't know why they have so much negative space on the interface layout. I've mentioned it to them at least 3 times now. But just make sure that you guys are going into full screen. Again, full screen is F11 on your keyboard. That way you guys should be able to see all the categories, all the checkboxes here, and all the attributes that you've selected over on the right. But again, lots of interface on there. Make sure you guys are doing what's going to be appropriate for you. An easement search in Realist? I don't believe so. You know what? I might actually have to research that. Yeah, there are some things that Realist cannot do. Easement, I believe, is actually one of them. That is actually a good question. So sorry, I'm just kind of started answering the question without addressing it directly, but somebody was asking how we do an easement search in Realist. This is actually something that I'm not certain of yet. I will do some research to find out if there is an option for that and get back to you. But as far as I'm aware, easement information, documents, some of the photos that like assessors have put on, or whatever the case may be, don't show up on Realist. Oftentimes the Realist information is just going to be bare bones, like just the raw data coming over directly from the county assessor's office, stripped of some of the maybe things that not every county will have. So it kind of tries to find the lowest common denominator information, which isn't ideal, but is kind of the limitation that we have. But it also gives us access to all 77 counties here in Oklahoma and 7 counties over to the east of us in Arkansas. So there is a lot of options within the lowest common denominator in those cases. Yeah, but I'll check into that a little bit more. But either way, it is now 11 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and call it here. If you guys do have any additional questions, feel free to stick around and you can ask them. But otherwise, if I could just get everybody to hit that raise hand button. Just as a reminder, the raise hand thing is just to make sure that everybody's here. This is a required part of the CE credit though. So if you would like to get the CE, make sure to hit that raise hand button. It looks like the only people, oh, and then suddenly it was everybody. All right, I got you guys documented. Oh yeah, Veronica, I can send you a recording of this. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no problem at all. Yes, yeah, for sure. I can send it to both of you. And in fact, actually, I'll just upload it to our YouTube channel and send everybody the link. Oh yeah. Oh, and actually, Gary, just as a heads up, the cheat sheet is actually going to be this little question mark icon. It'll give you a pop-up, popped up on the wrong screen, but it'll give you a pop-up that shows you all the information on there. I do have a printed copy of this, but you can actually do that pretty easy. If you just click inside this area, click is more just to make sure that it knows where you're wanting to do this. But if you click there and then do Control P as in print, it should allow you to actually just get a print off of all the information. Again, I think the speed bar is something that more people should use. It's just a really, really handy tool. I really like it. But again, I'm using it several times a day just for the agent search. All right. Well, again, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Stay cool out there. It was not a particularly comfy night last night with how warm it was, but hopefully it'll be a little bit cooler tonight. Stay cool in the meanwhile, guys. I'm going to go ahead and close up shop. Have a good one.